everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm so happy to have you here. It is Spooky Saturday. I've taken a whole week off of this YouTube thing. I needed a moment to reflect, to relax, try to get rid of a lot of the stuff that I've been studying because it's kind of deep and it makes you kind of crazy. So the first thing that I would like you to do while you're sitting here watching me is subscribe, like, and ring my bell. I know a lot of people don't like to do that for some reason. They like to just watch, but it would really help me if you did that. And I feel like I've come a long way from the first video that I did, even though it's only been it's been 7 months. So let's get into the case that we're going to study today for Spooky Saturday. We are going to be talking about Anatoly Moskvin. I hope I said it right. I'm not Russian. I'm not used to saying Russian names, but this really interested me, and I felt it was, as weird as it is, a little bit more lighthearted than some of the stuff that I've been talking about. Anatoly Moskvin studied the historical aspects of burials and cemeteries. It's got this big fancy name. I'm not going to pretend that I know it or even know how to say it correctly, but he was actually known as a genius in this area. And he actually studied different types of religions and their belief of how they believed in the dead. So Anatoly Moskvin was really interested in the Druids, and he was mostly interested on how the Druids believed that they could communicate with the dead and that the dead gave them powers. He was mostly known for studying different Celtic ceremonial beliefs or systems of how to bury their dead, and that's kind of what he was into, which is very rare. You don't hear about people who study that very often, and so he was actually known as an expert in the field and a genius. So Anatoly Moskvin, he had problems when he was younger. He was very antisocial, he didn't have a lot of friends, and even at a young age, he came home from school, he was kind of beat up, and he had told his parents he had been raped. So that is the start of what I would have to say of a troubling past, and I really believe that has something to do with how he acted in the future. But also something that's really interesting, I think that Russia is a very interesting country. They have some I would love to go over there and find out some of their witchcraft and pagan beliefs, because it's over there. It's cool. I would say I think it's cool. But what happened to Anatoly Moskvin was he was actually going somewhere, and these men in these black robes stopped him, and they basically told him you have to come to this ceremony. And what he walked into was, I read a couple places it was black magic. I don't know if it was black magic, but it was some kind of I would actually say a pagan ceremony where they were trying to bring back the dead or communicate with the dead or something like that. And he was actually forced to kiss this young girl who had died, and his mother made him wear a ring and said that they were married. I guess this is kind of common in Russia, at least from the articles that I read, that they have ceremonies like this. I've never heard of a ceremony like this, and I guess it was very troubling to Anatoly Moskvin. It kind of scarred him for life, and he later on went to say that the girl that he had been involved with the ceremony kept coming to him and talking to him. Now there's a pretty good chance Anatoly Moskvin was mentally ill. So if he actually heard someone speak to him, or maybe he had people talking to him in his head already, I'm not sure. They don't really talk about Anatoly Moskvin's mental health, but they did say that the young girl I believe her name was Natasha Petrova, kept coming back to him and asking him to do black magic. And he was like really scared of it, turned off by it, and didn't want to have anything to do with it. Which he later says he wishes he would have listened to the girl. So later on in Anatoly Moskvin's life, he met people who did practice the black arts, and he wanted to do that, and so he actually studied the black arts, and he learned how to communicate with the dead or do other things. If this really happened, you don't know, but this is what Anatoly Moskvin said. So you're just going by his accounts, and how much of what Anatoly Moskvin is real that he says it's very negotiable. So after all of this, later on when he's an adult, he lives with his parents. And what happens is that his parents live with him 6 months out of the year, and the other 6 months they go on holiday, which is very, very common for other countries. America is like the only country, there's probably others, but we're mostly known for this. We don't go on vacation. In other countries, especially Europe, they really go on like holidays, like sometimes up to 6 months long, or if they're a family, 1 or 2 months. Like the country dedicates time for people to have holidays, which I think is amazing, because that, I feel like that really is good for somebody's mental health, to actually be able to live life and enjoy it. And I think it's sad that that European part of that European culture never transferred over to America, but that's a whole nother topic. So Anatoly Moskvin's home, you already know that he's alone for 6 months out of the year. And his parents thought that he was a little quiet or antisocial, but they also said that they thought it was due to the fact that he was so intelligent, and that is just the way he was. So what Anatoly Moskvin did is that he used to go to graveyards, and he would lay on top of the graveyard and he would listen into the dirt. And if he could hear something call back or make a connection with him, he felt like he was talking to them. And so when he was talking with them, he began to believe that he couldn't just leave them in the cold dirt by themselves. So he actually dug these bodies up out of the ground and took them home. And so we're talking about somebody who actually studied death and burial ceremonies. So he knew how to mummify bodies. So he would mummify them as well in his own home, which is crazy, because if you've ever studied how to mummify a body, it's not easy, and I can only begin to imagine how it smelled and all kinds of stuff like that. But so he mummified the bodies, and he turned these girls ages from 5 to, I believe, like 22. Another account said to 29, but I really think it was like 5 to 22. He turned them into living dolls. And I actually got to see the footage of these living dolls, and I'll tell you how. But before we get into that, when he turned them into these living dolls, he would dress them up, put makeup on them. He covered their hands with nylon so you couldn't see their flesh mummified. He made their face look like porcelain dolls. He put like these eloquent little outfits on them, and it's already weird, but here's where it gets even crazier. He stuffed the insides under the rib cage with music boxes and things that rang and made bell-like sounds. That way, if he was talking to them or interacting with them, he felt like he was getting a response from them. So anyway, Russia was having a problem because I believe 29 bodies disappeared from a graveyard. Anatoly Moskvin was from an area in Russia called It was called Nizhny Novgorod. And what was happening is that there was like this outcry by the people because there was a graveyard stealing young girls. And the people of that area were very upset because, you know, a lot of them were very young, so they didn't die of natural causes. Not all of them, but most of them were very tragic causes because they didn't get to live their entire life. So they had already gone through the trauma of losing a child or a young woman, and then they went through the second trauma of having their child or sister or daughter being dug up and stolen, which could be, I couldn't even imagine. So actually one of the cases which he loved the most, his favorite doll, Olga Chardmova. She was a 10-year-old girl, and she was very, very pretty. There are lots of pictures of her, and she was very loved. And her mother bought her a pair of these beautiful little earrings. And I believe at this time, you know, it was a very poor, I don't know if it was a poor area or if it was just a hard time in Russia's history. But the little girl went out into this apartment complex and went upstairs in the top level, and she had these earrings on, and these people wanted her earrings because I don't know if they were diamonds or a precious crystal. They ended up hitting her in the head, and she fell down. I believe she fell behind something. They had to actually find her, and they stole her earrings. And it was very tragic because the parents really, really loved her. So they buried her in this graveyard, and of course Anatoly Moskvin finds her, and he decides that he needs to have her. And not only did he take these girls, he would visit their old graveyard sites and put like little notes and toys and be like, "You just had your birthday, happy birthday." And what was even more sad is that Anatoly did not think that the gravestone that Olga's parents put up was nice enough, so he totally destroyed it and left a letter saying, "If you don't get the appropriate gravestone for her, I will smash it again." If you have a 10-year-old child that is murdered, and now you have someone keeping her body and writing you letters, these poor parents. So there's a lot of like pressure on the officials to find out who's doing all of this grave robbing, and so they decide that they're gonna find an expert on cemeteries, and who better than Anatoly Moskvin. So they go to Anatoly's house, and for some reason he asks them to come in and he'll get ready. Well, they noticed all these life-size dolls, and they decided to get closer to him, and that is when they realized that they were not life-size dolls. They were actually mummified corpses of all the girls that they had been looking at. They actually have the video of them walking through the house, looking around, and I think they sound like really slightly impressed and like slightly horrified at how crazy that story is. And he is actually known as the Russian doll maker, which I used to like porcelain dolls. I used to have like some weird creepy fascination with them, but that is just that story beats all. The Russian doll maker. And it was really sad because Olga's parents did an interview, and she was quoted saying, "I had my daughter for 10 years, and Anatoly had her for 9. And she felt like they had been traumatized all over again. And it was sad. So yeah, and they ended up taking Anatoly, and I believe he was put into a mental institution, and I believe it was like it wasn't very long, it was 2 years in a mental institution. And I hope they're watching him, because I feel like he's gonna do that kind of stuff again if he ever gets out, but I don't think he'll ever get out of a mental institution. So yeah, that is the story of the Russian doll maker, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed Spooky Saturday. I'm really glad to be back. It was a very nice break that I took, and I can't wait to show you what I've been working on for like the last month. I'm gonna be loading it up hopefully on Tuesday, and I have so much more stuff that I'm gonna be bringing to you guys. I am going to be doing less unboxings of makeup and like beauty or lifestyle boxes because I just don't feel that that's the way my channel is going to go, but I will continue with the witchcraft and pagan boxes because I love them, and that's a nice break from all the seriousness of it. So anyway, have an amazing Saturday or whenever you're watching this, and remember, stay spooky and stay safe.